Welcome. I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County Mayor, and today we have the distinct pleasure of having the sheriff with us, Jeff Long.
Good morning, Mayor.
How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you doing?
Thanks for being. Oh, I'm doing great. Do want to say thanks for kind of filling in. We've had flu and everything else to go in, and for the folks out there, we try to plan these shows where we have appropriate time to do some thought and consultation and some of the topics. And the sheriff was available this morning as he was running through the hall. I grabbed him and said, "Can you help me out a little bit?" So thank you again.
We've had a couple of hours. That's plenty.
A lot of things going on in your department over here in county government. It's a new year, 2014. But before we kind of get into this upcoming year of 14 and 15, which they seem to roll by so quick anymore.
They are quick.
Let's talk a little bit about last year in 2013, about a year ago. About this time, the County Commission approved some funding for some SROs in all the public schools in Williamson County, in elementary through the middle school section.
Yeah, we were very blessed. Unfortunately, after the Sandy Hook, Connecticut incident, we had, as you know, had school resource officers in our middle schools and high schools. And so you were good enough to get in discussions with Dr. Looney and myself and talk about the need to put those in the elementary schools. And you led that fight with the County Commission, and they graciously approved the positions for us. And we added 32 at one time, put them in the county system as well as the city of Franklin schools for the elementary schools. And it's been very rewarding. It's been very good. I think I get a lot of comments back from the staff and from the parents, and to know the level of safeness that they feel in those schools to where they can do their jobs and where the kids can be educated, it's been very worthwhile.
You know, even though the funding was approved, it took a period of time that you had to get men and women certified, to get them in, get the equipment here, get the things needed to be done before you could actually stick them out. It's not just a matter of taking a man or a woman off the patrol shift or some other area and sticking them over there. That's not how it works.
That's the easy part. The hard part was, as you said, we took 24, I believe it was, of the 32 positions from our detention division. And, of course, with those, some of them haven't been through the Law Enforcement Training Academy, and that's 10 weeks. So they have to go through that. Then they have to go through the SRO school. And as you said, the equipment, what sort of held us up last year, if everybody remember, is they were slow to get weapons and ammunition and things like that. And trying to get the equipment took a lot of the time. But we were committed to try to get it done, have them in school by the first day of school, and we had every school filled with an SRO the first day. And I compliment my staff on getting that accomplished and getting them in place and having them there for the first day of school.
Well, it's a real testimonial to your efforts, and I know in having to work with our other police chiefs in our cities, although they are not involved in the SROs, they are involved when there's an incident. And so working all of this out, hopefully we'll never have an incident. We'll just write a check and that's it. But if not, I do know that in engaging each of those individual police areas inside those cities where we have schools, is something that can be accomplished.
Well, and we're in constant communication with the cities, because in reality they're going to be the ones to respond first. They're going to be the closest units probably at a school in their jurisdiction. And then now we're training. We're training with Brentwood. We've trained with Fairview in the past. Just had an incident at Fairview, which was fortunately a great training tool. Unfortunately, it scared everybody to death. We thought we had a person with a gun on campus. So we're constantly doing training with those other agencies, Franklin, to try to make sure that we have a plan in place. In the event, we had one real quickly in Fairview the other day. We got dispatch got a call from someone sitting in a car who said they thought they saw someone, a male, go between the middle school and high school in Fairview in behind it toward the woods, and had something wrapped wrapped in camouflage. It looked like a rifle. So naturally, everybody pretty well responded and got there and trying to find out. What it ultimately came down to was it was an ROTC student who was supposed to be at a certain time at practice for something they had coming up in the next few months. And he got tied up in the traffic up at the middle school and was afraid he was going to be late, so he jumped out of the car not thinking and carried that rifle wrapped in camouflage, even though it was a false rifle, carried it across the campus and down to the door, and then his ROTC instructor let him in. But, you know, it took us probably 45 minutes to an hour after the incident, after we had the campuses locked down, had the children in place, that we found out what the actual situation was. But that was a great test, but it also was pretty realistic. I was there on the scene, and it was pretty realistic at the time.
And simultaneously, but a different issue, just recently within the last month, 30 days, we've had an issue that I think the general public would like to know about, what parts you can tell, talking about Scales Elementary and the issue that occurred over there, and the legislation that is up on the Hill to trying to change the law to put some teeth, some real teeth in this.
Well, unfortunately, what happened is that there was a contract employee who wasn't even actually a county employee, but he was contracted to do janitorial service at the school. And he had gone up in a access that he normally has access to. It's a stairwell thing, and got up in the school ceiling, false ceiling area, and was taking the ceiling tiles and pulling them back, and was in over top of the girls' restroom, and was apparently looking at children down in the restroom area. He was caught there on site. Our school resource officer was there on site, placed him under arrest, or detained him at that time, until we could get the detectives out and try to get the case worked up and everything. But from that situation, he could only be charged with a misdemeanor, which only carries a sentence of 11 months, 29 days. So after that, Dr. Looney and myself and our delegation in the legislature have sat down and met with several parents in the Scales School. And what we're looking at is trying to draft some legislation that would probably isolate it and even categorize it. If it's say a child under 13, it would be a certain class felony. Also, we're even looking at one if it's a offender over 5 years senior to the person they're viewing, it could be a felony. The thing we want to be careful about is maybe an 18-year-old who is playing a joke on somebody and be caught up in a felony or having to register a sex offender. But we're looking at the 13-year-old making that a felony, and then what I want to include in the bill too that I think should even aggravate it further is if they're using a video device to record that, then that ought to be another step up as a higher felony. And then certainly we want it to be a reportable offense on the sex offender registry, because otherwise, if a person was charged and convicted, if they weren't registered on sex offender, they possibly could go to another location and get a job at the same type employment. But if they're on the registry, then they would certainly know that when they did the background.
So that bill now is currently up in Nashville, going through the processes, and I'd be willing to bet 100% this bill will gather some feet and move itself right on through on this.
Well, we
one.
certainly hope so. Senator Johnson and Representative Sargent have filed those bills and the captions for them, and we're finishing the drafting stage. We think we'll have them pretty well completed within a week to 2 weeks. And we've already started to lay the foundation at the legislature, talking to some of the legislators to tell them what's coming and hopefully get them to sign on to the bill and co-sponsor it.
Let's take another issue, 180-degree turn, okay. A problem that's from Mountain Home to Memphis, Tennessee, all across the state of Tennessee. It's meth labs. I heard you recently at the chamber make some very strong conversation, but it also has some elements about it that we're trying to protect the consumer side of the general public too. If you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about meth issues. Even though we may not be the meth capital of the state of Tennessee, we do have some incidents here that do cost a lot of money.
Yes, they
so
do.
What kind of steps, what kind of legislation are we looking up on the Hill and that can be addressed? Hopefully it'll go through, but if it's not, I know the governor's addressing some of this and some of his legislation of his package, but I also know the sheriffs have an interest in it too, very much so.
Well, I'm the legislative chairperson for the Sheriff's Association, and we've been in this battle since 2008, 2009 with the legislature trying to get something done about the production, manufacture of methamphetamine in our state. In Williamson County, we're very lucky. We have low numbers, believe me, compared to everybody else. But Tennessee has been the #1 state in the nation the last 2 years in the manufacturing of methamphetamine. About 368, I think it was, children were removed from residences last year in the state that were associated with the manufacture of methamphetamine. That's a tremendous cost, about $7 million, I think it was. We had about 1,700 labs recovered in Tennessee last year at an annual cost. I think the comptroller has done a study, and from 2004 to 2011, Tennessee has spent about $70 million just on removing children and placing them in foster care from where they were associated with the manufacture of methamphetamine. So what we're fighting, the argument in Nashville right now is that there's one key ingredient that's a precursor for methamphetamine, is simply a Sudafed or pseudoephedrine type white tablet that is used in that manufacture. And we've got to get that abuse of using that white tablet under control in order to drop the labs. The states of Mississippi and Oregon passed state laws to make it a prescription-only medication, and when they did, their labs dropped by 97% the first year. What we have not done a good job, I don't think, of is educating the public, because what we hear is, they don't want to have to pay a copay, they don't want to have to go to another doctor visit, they don't want that inconvenience of having to do that. Well, we haven't done a good job of educating, and what we're trying to regulate is that one white tablet. There are two other forms of pseudoephedrine. One is a capsule and one is a liquid form. We will allow them to buy that over the counter just like they always have, because you can't use it effectively to manufacture methamphetamine. But the white tablet is simply the one we're trying to control. The governor came out with a package the other day to where his bill would allow a person to have a 10-day supply, 2.4 grams for a 10-day supply. And then they could go back and get another box of pseudoephedrine if the pharmacist will override the checking mechanism, which is a registry that people present their driver's license for and things. You're supposed to be allotted a certain amount, but the pharmacist will be able to override that. Now, after a period of time, I think it's 6 months to a year, then you would need to get a doctor's prescription after that point. The problem that we see in that bill is you're allowing more or less 2 boxes a month to someone, and with each box you can manufacture 2 grams of methamphetamine. So we don't see that cutting it a lot. It will cut it some, but not a lot. But what happens the last time the legislature chose to cut the amount you're allowed is it developed what's called smurfers. Instead of me singly going out and buying the Sudafed, I get 15 of my friends and cohorts who are involved in the meth trade to go out and buy it too. And that just multiplies. Every time you reduce the rates, it multiplies the number of people that went out. Last year alone, over 100,000 new driver's licenses were used to purchase it than had been the year before because the limits were lowered. Not only that, we now are having driver's licenses out of Alaska being used to buy it. I hate to think and wouldn't think that somebody's driving from Alaska to Tennessee to buy pseudoephedrine. So what are they doing? They're manufacturing the false IDs to do that. Senator Farrell Hale, I think, has one of the most reasonable bills that I've seen, and that's allowing that first box. Let the customers have that. They don't have to get they don't have to go to a doctor or do anything. They just go to the pharmacist and get it. After that first box, which is about a 20-day supply, then they can get a second box. However, the pharmacist has to sign off and has to authorize that purchase. Instead of just saying, okay, let them have it, they have to actually sign off. That way, if there is an abuse across the state, we can look and see which pharmacists are doing that. But then on that third time you go in, you have to have a physician assistant, or either a nurse practitioner to issue that prescription, and that can be done by fax, by telephone, or by a written prescription.
And so many of the local pharmacists now are having nurse practitioners on site with some other wellness programs they've got going. It seems to me that that would be another alternative for getting that prescription. Before we move beyond this, you've explained the processes you're trying to get this bill through the legislators in Nashville. Let me back up just a little bit, because some of the facts and data that I have heard you say and that I have seen over the last several years, that when we're taking this little white tablet or that is being purchased and spread out throughout the chain, I'm not sure that really people fully understand, probably not so here in Williamson County, but how that's made. I don't want to go into the actual making here on this show, but the effects of that to children, you talked about that, and how easy it is for me to rent a house to get that done, or to go to a motel room, or on and on and on. The people, the criminals, the bad guys, they really don't care. What they're interested in is making that product to sell to make some money. What's left over is for the locals, the state, to be involved, to have to clean that mess up. Or, in this case, I think some people need to understand, if you own the property, ultimately, you're probably going to be held responsible.
Yeah, if you rent property out, for instance, and someone makes methamphetamine in your residence that you're renting out, you ultimately are going to be the one that's going to be responsible to have that environmentally cleansed in order to re-rent it or sell it. What will actually happen is, if a raid is made on that residence, we are required by law to condemn that property pretty well until it's environmentally safe. So someone like that would do it. You know, I saw something yesterday where a child up in East Tennessee in Carter County, they had determined that the child had been pretty severely damaged in their lung area and everything, where they'd been in a house with methamphetamine being produced. The parents were indicted for aggravated child abuse because of producing that and the recurring events with that child. So it's all over the state. It's an epidemic. If you talk to the people who know anything about methamphetamine, it's one of the most deadly type of addiction there is. It's one of the hardest addictions to beat. The cost of cleanup is enormous. Federal funds have been available in the past to help clean it up. I know Representative Sargent, being chairman of the Budget Committee, has actually had to put in $750,000 the last 2 years to TBI just to have the money to clean these labs up across the state.
And recently, on hitchhiking on some of those, Sharon Guffey has had, and I know your staff's been involved in it too, but they're having some public seminars throughout the different areas. And of course, that one topic comes up over and over and over, the cost. But the other part that's being pushed out there, and I'm not sure that I fully realized at that time until I heard this comment made a couple of times, is the addiction to that drug, and particularly to a female pregnant, looking for money, working with her so-called accomplishments, what the damage can be, not only to her, but her unborn child, but particularly a baby in that environment, breathing, taking in those fumes, is just incredible to me.
Well, it's a deadly fume and a deadly inhalation that child's taking in. I mean, you're taking in the effects of Drano, you're taking in the effects of acid, you're taking in, different things, lantern fluid, lighter fluid, things you use to spray in a car to start it on a cold morning where it won't start. Those are the things that are used in the manufacture of methamphetamine, and they're deadly. And if a child or an individual inhales that fume or exhaust, I mean, it can be. And the addiction rate, I mean, if you look at the addiction rates for meth, they're just out the roof. I mean, it's very difficult. I know I've been in this, as you know, many, many years, and I prosecuted in some of the smaller counties who had a meth problem, which surprised me 5 years before I saw it get to Williamson County. And it was 2 or 3 counties here connecting and over from Williamson County. I know of 3 females that I dealt with back that time that have actually beat the addiction and have I've met with recently who have really turned their lives around and been able to beat that addiction. That's tough to do because a lot of people are not able to beat it. It's that deadly.
Sheriff, let's turn the conversation a little bit more in the time that we have remaining today to talk about your own department. The acclimates across the state and your involvement is a direct result, and I know you would say this too, the men and women that you've got serving on you on a daily basis, 24/7, 365. The commitment is certainly goes without saying that your job and your role in good times and bad times is all about law enforcement, protecting the people and presenting programs to our community that serve a benefit. We've been very blessed here in Williamson County.
We're so blessed.
I've often said that this county is one of those few places on the face of the earth, not just in the state of Tennessee, that you want to raise your family.
Absolutely.
You want them to go to school in our churches and our parks and rec, because generally speaking, we have our issues just like every community across America. It's a safe place to be. But that only happens through good observation, good man and women power, or woman power, whatever the proper English is. And I know that your men and women are taxed at every level. We did add more people, but a lot of them were SROs. We continue to grow as a community. Our judicial system, which we're falling further and further back, in being able to address, as our community has grown by leaps and bounds of 45 and 50% over a 10 and 15-year window. But our court system, which is part of your area, part of my area, we've not kept pace with that. But specifically, I look at your department, you've done a heck of a job with the manpower that you've currently got in aligning those men and women out there just to take on things like 840, for example.
Absolutely. What a challenge. 840 has really been a challenge. Matter of fact, before we came in this morning, I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about 840, and I told them it's not unusual for us to have, on an average, 3 accidents out there, maybe a day and night, trying to meet that need. First of all, let me talk about the staff. I am so proud of our staff. I have the greatest staff in the world, and as I tell people and them also, they actually do the work. I get to go out in public and take the accolade and the credit for what they do, but they're the ones that do it. And yes, we're taxed just like every other department in the government is. We'd like to have more personnel and things, but our officers and deputies are committed to getting the job done. First of all, they're going to do it no matter what. If I just get out of the way, they're going to do the job if I don't stand in the way and prevent them. So they're going to meet the challenge. We seek to try to train them better. Since I've been sheriff, I've tried to get integrity into the department. I want them to represent our county well. I want our county to have faith in them. I want them to be able to trust them. I want them to be able to come up in a community and talk to our deputies and feel that they can confidentially talk to them about something happening, because they're our best eyes and ears, the people in the community are. So we work hard at that. We try to establish hot zones and hot places. It amazes me, Mayor, at certain times of the day. When I got elected sheriff, I noticed that they were responding to the calls pretty quick, and I was amazed at that. And I asked somebody, I said, how do they get there so quick? And they had it down pretty well to a science where at a certain time of day, they know pretty well where the calls are going to come from. I mean, certain time of days, you're going to start having your accidents out on the interstate. Certain times of the day, you're going to start having your domestic violence calls. So we work off of that and try to improve that, and the staff has just been tremendous. We're growing at a fast rate. As you said, the county's getting bigger and bigger. We have new challenges. Just watching the news this weekend with the mall shooting in another state, those are things that law enforcement has totally changed, and we're now having to look at and address in addition to what we used to do.
But I also got to give you credit, and I understand you'd pass on those acclimates to your men and women just like I would. But I also know that things have changed a great deal in our time together here just in Williamson County, but specifically just in the last 10 to 15 years. When we look back, there was a time, Sheriff, that county sheriffs, police chiefs did their individual things.
Oh, yeah.
Today, the Maryland Mall is a good example. It's all hands on deck.
Oh, if you have an event, you have to have everybody.
Because none of us have the resources to provide. You alluded to something early on the SROs. The county probably didn't have to fund the SROs inside those city limits, but it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely,
It was the comment that was made by you and the police chiefs throughout our area, and we see that today. Whether it's through our, you've never backed off one inch on the public safety. Well, public safety expands beyond just your realms. Public safety is our emergency management, our ambulances, our men and women at 911, and the 911 districts, wherever they are, police chiefs, and sometimes as elected officials, all of us, if we're not careful, egos will get in our way. That's just the nature of who we are. But at the end of the day, what I always have said here in Williamson County is that our men and women do step up, and we do those things to make this a safe place, where you're inside the city or you're out in the county.
Doesn't matter. We're all on the same team together. Every city police department, the county sheriff's office, EMA, Department of Public Safety, we're all in this together. We're all first responders, and we have to do it as a team because none of us can do it by ourselves.
And in the couple of minutes we've got remaining, I know personally that you and I back in 2010 got stranded on a few little roads when there was a major flood going on, and we kind of looked at each other kind of bewildered. We got through that. But since that time, you've taken great strides and great pains in getting additional equipment, really at no local taxpayer dollar involvement.
That's right. We have been very fortunate that since the May floods 2010, what a lesson we learned. I mean, we weren't prepared, and I don't think anybody was. But since that time, we've utilized a federal surplus property website, and we've obtained a lot of vehicles and things that we can use in the event of a flood or high water. And as you said, it's not cost anything to the citizens other than maybe gas to go get it and drive it here. And we're talking about several $1 million worth of equipment for nothing.
Got 1 minute left. I'm sure I overlooked something. We've gone at a rapid pace for two guys that didn't know they were going to be talking to each other up to about 2 hours ago. What have I overlooked?
Well, I've got to sort of tell you how proud I am of some of the programs we started in the jail. We have different types of programs to try to rehabilitate or at least stop the recidivism rate. We've now graduated over 100 in the GED program, which I'm very proud of. We've also got Sergeant Eddie Stevens with the litter division, who's gone out and done, I noticed the other day, we're cleaning cemeteries that have not been cleaned in the past to where a family can eventually take that over. We're up above 60 of those now. We have life skill programs in the jail, trying to get people, teach them how to be a parent. They've not been parents in the past. We have our AA, NA programs there. We have our religious services at night. Got a lot going on, and it's just to try to make the sheriff's office a better place and try to protect our citizens better in the community.
Your sheriff, Jeff Long, done a great job, continues to do a great job. I'm Rogers Anderson. We got to get out of here. Have a good day.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a CASA volunteer. I am you.